or at least have access to some of the meetings that they're holding with the caregiver groups on a quarterly basis. I have not had a response to these, nor am I able to access the minutes from any of these meetings on DHHS website. My other concern is that the current laws for caregivers are not easily accessible by us as caregivers on their website. Communication is very lacking between caregivers and the department, and I'd like to see that change, because we are not here, I personally am not here to make a ton of money off of what I'm doing. I'm here to help people as a nurse, and I can't stress that to you enough. Most of the quality caregivers that I've met, and I've met many over my 8 years in this field, are very passionate about quality medicine for patients, not about making money. So I'd just like to stress that. And one last thing I would like to make mention of and reaffirm what other people are saying is the family limit for growing for families. Personally, my thoughts are, if you're growing for 2 family members and you create a limit of 2 family members allowable, I think that's reasonable. That would cover, a parent growing for a child, or, somebody growing for a family member that has cancer. I don't think it needs to be unlimited number of family members, so I think that might address some of those issues. So I just wanted to touch upon those. Thank you for allowing me to testify.
Thank you very much for sharing your testimony. Representative Heinenson.
Thank you for coming. Do you have written testimony? Could you put those into even just bullet points for us?
I can do that because this bill was so quick. I think we're all kind of, our heads are spinning, but absolutely.
That would be great.
Absolutely, thank you.
Seeing no additional questions, thank you very much. Additional testimony in opposition to this bill.
Dear Senator Brakey, Representative Gattine, and distinguished members of the Committee on Health and Human Services, my name is Thomas Morse. I'm accompanied here today with my father, Peter Morse. We are tax accountants with our 2 firms, The Tax Doctor, located in Old Orchard Beach, and Fiscal Therapy Financial, located in the Old Port. We have over 1,300 clients and been in business for over 24 years. Up until recently, we have had very few medical marijuana clients. In the past 2 years alone, however, we have seen our medical marijuana clientele increase to somewhere near 100 clients. The reason we are here today is to aid the committee in its discussion of the taxation issues that are associated with the medical marijuana caregivers in this state. Due to the vagueness of current taxation laws, we have done extensive research on both the Colorado and Washington models in order to ascertain the most accurate way to handle a taxation code filled with mixed messages. A consistent theme, strongly reiterated by our clients, is that they want to do things the right way. In an industry that has historically been haunted by a negative stigma, our caregiver clients are craving legitimacy and want to be compliant with both state and federal laws. Our clients' overwhelming urge to become a legitimate and compliant business with the state is overcoming the fear of prosecution that has lingered with them in the recent past. It is an honor to advocate for our clients today, and we're open to any general questions the committee might have. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'll say, I know that part of the discussion for some of the work sessions we're going to be doing later today will be around, I know some of the requests about CAC status and these sorts of things. Do you know if you'll be available, or do you know if you'll be around later today if some of those questions come up?
Yeah, we should be here. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be wonderful. Senator Haskell.
Thank you. In that discussion, I'd like to get your feedback on the non-profit, for-profit discussion that was held earlier today regarding dispensaries, and whether you're aware of any across the country that are for-profit, and kind of what your feedback on that might be.
It's hard to get into specifics right now, but for the most part, it's usually non-profit for the dispensaries and the medical marijuana side. Once it goes recreational, it's usually for-profit.
Right, and that's the standard.
Yeah.
Across the country. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much.
Good morning, distinguished members of the Health and Human Services Committee. My name is Thomas Aubert from Sumner, Maine. I'm here today to oppose 1392. I worked on the 2009 initiative to make medical marijuana more accessible to Mainers. And the original intent of the people was to not have it was have dispensaries run as a nonprofit. I'm wondering what part of nonprofit Tim Schmale did not understand when he chose to help sick people. By the way, being nonprofit was important in the scoring during the competitive licensing process. So without nonprofit status, they never would have got the license. I'm here today in support of the rights of the 1,700 plus caregivers and many thousands more patients and constituents. 1392 is being called the department's bill. Well, as history has proven, with the ex-head of the medical marijuana program now sitting on the board of directors for the Wellness Connection, this bill could be called the dispensary bill. Caregivers pay much more in application fees, and as far as the constituents go, there are only 5 from the dispensary monopoly, and literally tens of thousands from the patients and caregiver model. Please consider the privacy of your constituents and the plight for affordable medicines for sick and usually poor people. 1392 is an insult to veterans and poor people as it removes sliding scale fees. The bill seems to be more about money than anything else. Let's not profit off sick and compassionate caregivers of the sick. Forcing growers back to the black market, which will actually give us more rights underneath the Fourth Amendment. So, there's a lot going on here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Senator Haskell.
Can you tell me which part of this bill removes the sliding scale fees, just so I can find it?
2 days ago I heard about this, and I do know it's in there. It's in the summary. It's in the summary. I don't know where it is, but it's definitely in there.
Thank you.
Seeing no additional questions, thank you very much. Additional testimony in opposition to this bill.
I'm not a public speaker. I just forgot to say one thing that I really wanted to say.
I'm sorry. If we allow one person to come up twice, everyone's got to have.
You got an email address? I can email it to you?
Yes, if you connect with our clerk, you can get that to us. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator Brakey and representatives of the Committee on Health and Human Services. My name is Hillary Lister. I live in Athens, Maine. I am a patient and former director of medical marijuana Caregivers of Maine. While I was director of MMCM, I sat on the Caregiver Forum and got to participate in that. And I am concerned that there was only notes from one meeting that were actually kept and published or made available to us at the following meeting, when it was discussed that those notes did not include the concerns of the members of the forum about the new certification portal. And asked to have those notes included. They were told the notes were already written. There was only limited space for that. So I really do think a better record of what happened at the forums would be helpful for looking at the concerns and possible ways to address some of these concerns that are raised by this bill. Just wanted to quickly answer Senator Haskell's question about the section on sliding scale. It's section 19 of the bill that addresses that. And it's sliding scale fees for veterans. I think that may have been struck with the elimination of the voluntary registration card. That used to be a $100 a year card. That became a no-fee card, but the way the language is written, it also would allow the department to allow sliding scale fees for veterans who are caregivers, and this would eliminate that as well. Just one of the major topics that this bill addresses is the complaint investigations of caregivers. In last session, the department bill brought forth very similar language to what's in this bill. The committee had concerns, especially when it came out that the department was planning to contract with law enforcement, either current or former members of law enforcement, to conduct the investigations. As a result of that, and also concerns over some of the things that have been raised around the amounts of penalties that can be imposed on a caregiver for things that are otherwise civil violations, the committee had directed the department to issue a report for December 2014 on a plan to develop a framework for processing, documenting, and investigating complaints. That legislation directed the department to include in its report whether enacting new laws or authorizing new rules were required to implement the recommendations of the department. I spoke incorrectly last session. I thought no report had been issued, but on December 1st, a one-page letter was issued by the department, Framework for Processing Complaints, concerning the medical marijuana program. It provided details on how complaints would be tracked, It did not provide any details on how complaints would be investigated or the process for complaint investigations, and if legislation or rulemaking was necessary for that, though the department has already initiated these complaint investigations without that authorization. Just a couple quick things before my time is up. Concerns about the language around access to patient cultivation space for a municipal official, quote, to further the business of the municipality. The definition of what that business is not specified, and patient cultivation sites are usually private. And with that, my 3 minutes are up. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lister. Questions from the committee? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I assume you'll be around for the work sessions? Great. Additional testimony in opposition to this bill?
Good morning, Senator Brakey, representatives of the Health and Human Services Committee, who are those of you who are left. My name is Omi Amar Singham. I'm Public Policy Counsel for the ACLU of Maine. I'll be very brief because I don't have anything written. I will submit written testimony to the committee, and I'm sorry that I don't have it prepared. We reviewed this bill last night, and we have serious concerns about Section 1 of the bill that gives DHHS broad authority to get law enforcement investigative and intelligence information for reasons that are a little unclear to us. Sections 13 and 14 for the same concerns that Hillary just raised, which would allow access to the homes of patients and caregivers for quote-unquote to further the business of this municipality, which we think are clear Fourth Amendment issues where the government would essentially be able to go into a person's home with no warrant and with no particularity about what they're looking for and what they're doing there. And then finally, we have general objections to the criminalization of new behavior and a slew of mandatory minimum fines, which is an issue that the Judiciary Committee is currently considering. The proliferation of mandatory minimum fines in a number of different statutes throughout the Maine statutes has led to the rise of modern-day debtors' prisons, which is something the ACLU is very concerned about. And with that, I will write it all down for you to read at your leisure.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing no questions, thank you. Additional testimony in opposition to this bill? Testimony in opposition? Oh, there we go.
Good afternoon, Senator Brakey and the HHS committee. My name is Catherine Lewis. I am a caregiver, and I'm also a Director of Education for MMCM, the State's Trade Association for the Caregivers. We have over 500 members currently. We also implemented classes at the University of Maine Augusta and in the Southern Maine so that we could teach caregivers the law, business practices, and best practices as caregivers. We also have met with DHHS a few times, and we've worked with them to try to facilitate open communication. And I believe that we've had decent communications, although I don't know that we've always been heard. We talked about implementing an inspection program that was not actually ever developed. We have serious concerns as an organization with this bill, but myself particular as a caregiver, there's a lot of restrictions in here, a lot of things that make me fearful with the criminal charges. As other people have said, I'm not going to reiterate that there's nothing in writing that says what these investigations are looking for, what the criminal charges would be based on. I know that it was, that Mr. Albert said that it would be for multiple repeat offenders. However, there's nothing in the language that states that. There's no limitations. The cost of investigations could put small businesses like mine out of business. I have my 5 patients, my husband has 5 patients, but we have about 25 patients that we donate for free. We specialize mostly in PTSD patients, veterans, and cancer patients. And as stated before, the cancer patients, we have several right now that are using multiple doses of oil. That was explained how that is made, but it takes a significant amount of cannabis to make a daily dose. For one of my patients is taking 2 suppositories 4 times a day. That's a lot of medicine to try to treat cancer that has been unsuccessfully treated with chemotherapy and radiation. We do have success with a couple of our cancer patients, that their cancer has stopped growing, has not spread, and we are hopeful that we will have even better results in the future to share this. We are against this bill as it is written. We are willing to work with the department to improve it. We are not opposed to inspections, just like everybody else. But I also have another business where I set up businesses as Business Solutions of Maine. I do payroll, I do workers' comp. I also help new businesses get established. I've worked with over 200 caregivers who have come to me wanting to do things the right way. They're having me set up with their federal ID numbers, their state ID numbers, state sales tax, and out of over 200, only 3 of them have not wished to do the sales tax piece because their accountants advised them against it because it had not gone through the appropriate committees and was not approved yet to pay sales tax. There's nothing in the categories when you actually go to the drop down. You can be a florist. That is the only thing that applies to what we do. So the ones that are doing the sales tax, which again is just around 200 of them, that I personally deal with, that's what we have set up as florists. I see my time is up. I just want to make the point that caregivers want to do things the right way. And I'm happy to be here for the work session to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, and I hope as we do work sessions, some of these section will be available. Additional testimony in opposition to this bill?
Good morning. My name is Kim Printy. I'm a patient and a caregiver. I work with Medical Marijuana Caregivers of Maine for the last few years, Compassionate Caregivers of Maine. I've had an opportunity to speak with hundreds of caregivers through the years and hundreds of patients. And I'm here today to share their testimony with all of the committee. In the last year, I have picked up 10 different patients between the ages of 50 and 75 that were unable to obtain medication at dispensary that was helpful for their treating condition, that was affordable for their finances. Most of them required donations. With my current patient caseload, I would be prevented from being able to help these 10 people. I've given you a brief summary of their conditions and their situations so you can understand what they're up against. I mostly help veterans and cancer patients, as been shared with the concentrated cannabis oil that requires a pound. That will help my patients for approximately 6 to 8 weeks. That's not very long, and it's very expensive treatment. Typically, cancer patients have exhausted all of their resources, so all of my cancer patients get their medicine donated to them. If you prohibit me from being able to donate to patients that are not mine, the 10 people that are sitting in front of you will go without their medicine. It is not free at the dispensary. There are other caregivers that can't afford to be able to provide the medicine that I do for them. So I urge you to reconsider us being able to donate to other people. And appreciate you reading their information. It's very important to them for their voices to be heard today. There's one patient in particular who prepared some testimony that I'd like to read to you. Her name is Deborah Guru. She's a 61-year-old woman who comfortably retired from my profession in the pharmaceutical world. I also resigned my position as attorney in 2 states to be a caregiver. I have run 2 small businesses in the past. Other professionals are caregivers too. We choose this profession to give comfort and pain relief to those who benefit from medical marijuana. I am a DHS certified caregiver and a qualified medical marijuana patient. Medical marijuana has significantly reduced my pain due to arthritis and irritable bowel syndrome. My goal is to share the pain relief with qualified patients as their caregiver. I am concerned about the negative impact of LD 1392 on small business development in Maine and caregivers' ability to legally provide comfort and pain relief for qualified patients who cannot afford their medicine. I am concerned about the proposed addition of municipal official to further the business of a municipality. The language further business of the municipality is too vague to give a clear direction to the municipal officer or to the caregiver. I am concerned about the primary caregiver fines proposed. In other industries, the first failure to comply results in a written warning with time to cure. Notice to cure is not a fine for the first offense. Additionally, this section is giving punitive criminal charges for an administrative mistake. We are caregivers, small businesses of Maine. We are not large out-of-state corporations who will eventually take money back to their states. We earn it, and it stays here. Many pain patients cannot afford their medical marijuana. We caregivers legitimately donate to those less affluent patients. LD 1392 will have a negative impact on our ability to really care for those who need. Finally, we need to be able to self-regulate as other industries do in America. Lawyers are judged by lawyers and judges, not by town mayor or law enforcement personnel.
We are at time, so if you could give us some final thoughts.
It is unfair to expect law enforcement individuals who have retired to immediately change that view after years of training to enforce criminal law. Thank you for hearing my written message.
Thank you very much. There's a question from Representative Bursky.
Sure. Could you just tell us your name again?
Kim Pretty.
It's good.
You're welcome.
Additional testimony in opposition to this bill? So I'll ask one last time, or forever hold your peace. The testimony in opposition to this bill. That's why I always ask a question.
Good day, members of the committee.
My name is Joanna Reese, and I am just an activist on behalf of Maine people and all of our American rights that we have in this great democracy. So I just wanted to reiterate the points about rulemaking and the points about safety for a safe state program for all, whether they are involved in the program or have other concerns, whether they're constituents of either DHS or caregivers or their patients. I think this affects all of us as citizens, and particularly I'm opposed to 1392's provision about, suggestion about the process for complaint investigations. I just want to make sure that the constitutional rights of Maine citizens are being protected in regards to the complete transparent process of the rulemaking, making sure that it stays substantive, that lawmakers and the public are involved in these procedures, and that everyone can feel safe and that their rights are being upheld. So I oppose this bill on that particular point, among others which have been addressed today. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much. Same question, thank you. Testimony in opposition to this bill. Last call for testimony in opposition to this bill. Seeing none, a testimony neither for nor against this bill. Welcome.
Good morning. It's not after you quite yet. My name is Paul T. McCarrier. I'm from Knox, and I'm also the president of Legalize Maine. Thank you for taking the time to share this bill. We are testifying in neither for nor against LD 1392, an act to amend the Maine Medical Use of Marijuana Act. While we support the intentions of this bill, which is to increase the integrity of the Maine Medical Marijuana program and to add more regulations, we're concerned that it will have a significant impact on rural patients who can access their medicine and to provide barriers to caregivers who are trying to help these sick Mainers. I think everyone who's spoken before me has really covered on a lot of these points, but I just want to reiterate kind of the law of unintended consequences of when you give such broad-reaching authority to a department. And with that, I believe that major substantive rulemaking should be important. If there's going to be any rulemaking that can be concerning inspections or regulations on the medical marijuana program. A lot of caregivers do provide for patients in a rural area, and I believe that if this bill is passed as is, that would significantly harm those patients' access to medical marijuana in those rural areas, and it will in fact have the opposite effect, or the opposite desire of what the department wants. Because I think the department wants people who are using medical marijuana to access it through participants in the medical marijuana program. And we all know that there's plenty of marijuana out there. and that if these patients are not able to access it through a registered provider, they will be able to access it somewhere else, and that will be underground market. When it comes down to the issue of taxes, I think it's important to note that caregivers pay property taxes because they are not nonprofits. They pay income taxes, and even though the sales tax question is not figured out, I believe your committee will be figuring it out this time around, but I suggest we would consult with the taxation committee also. I paid a significant amount of income tax last year. I think I could spend the money better, but you still got to pay your taxes. When it comes down to the issues of incorporation, I think it's very important that caregivers are allowed to continue to be corporations. I think someone who was talking from a tax perspective mentioned that earlier. I also think it's important because they're small businesses that they're recognized as small businesses. And I'd be happy to answer any questions and be here for the work session.
Any questions? Seeing no questions, thank you very much. Additional testimony neither for nor against this bill? Going once? Going twice? All right. Any requests from the committee for additional information for the work session? Seeing none, then all testimony having been taken, this public hearing on LD 1392 is now closed.